Hi everyone, it's Alan here with St. John's Community Services, and my guest this week is Alex Roberts, and Alex is joining us fairly recently to the St. John's team. You came on in March, you were saying, first week of March, and I remember actually sitting in on your interview and meeting you, and I was really blown away and impressed with you. It's great to have you in this kind of environment for this conversation today, so thank you for taking the time, Alex.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, Alex, you've got a very interesting background relative to the whole concept of being an ally. You've done training of other groups for this. That was one of the reasons that we were really impressed with you, as we want to grow in our diversity and our inclusion at St. John's. We want to really make an effort there and felt that we could potentially tap into your talents there. But can you give us a little bit of your background? How did you get kind of pulled into that area of the cause? What motivates you? What excites you? Yeah, just go ahead and share for a minute.
Yeah, sure. So I really got started in LGBT advocacy and inclusion work out of necessity, out of just I myself am a trans person. And so when I was trying to access resources, when I was just trying to kind of live with respect and dignity, I hit a lot of barriers, and I just wanted to really power through that. And so that is how I got involved in advocacy. I was like, you know what, I want to have a better situation, so I'm gonna try to work for that. And I think that I can't do it alone. I need my allies. I need help. And so that is how I got more specifically involved in training allies and trying to give them the tools to be able to support the LGBT people in their lives and just generally really show LGBT people respect.
So what are some of the wins that have happened along the way for you in that process? Like maybe you've seen lights go on for people where they weren't before. What are some of the challenges that you've had to overcome or still we need to overcome?
Yeah, wins, let me think. You know, probably my favorite, I've done lots of trainings, and normally I get at least like one person that will come up to me after the training and say, you know what, you phrased something a certain way, and that really connected for me, and that really changed the way that I thought about things. And whenever I get those comments after trainings or discussions, you know, that's what I live for. That's what really keeps me going. You know, difficulties, there's still a lot of challenges. I'll say specifically when it comes to allies and challenges with dealing with people that want to be allies, just lack of education, lack of kind of understanding. It would be just nice if we had more allies that really understood LGBT people and educated themselves on some of the things that we go through. And that education is a big part of the trainings that I do.
Yeah, so I've been learning as well, and I'm trying to be a better ally on a couple different fronts. And one of the things that you bring up is the need to educate ourselves. And I think there is a tendency for us to go to the people that have been traumatized and experienced the discrimination in the first place and ask them to kind of relive all of that and educate us. And so that's something I think we're trying to raise awareness, because it does take effort on yourself to learn, and that takes time, and that takes putting yourself in situations maybe where you don't know as much, or maybe you might feel even uncomfortable, but it's coming out of that comfort zone that you grow. And so, you know, it's something that we want to try to get better at St. John's. We talked before this. I was drawn to St. John's because I just felt this was a very innovative organization that really, really genuinely loved people, and that they were probably one of the most inclusive groups I had ever been around. You know, has that been a similar experience for you or not? Like, what drew you to St. John's? You just came on and joined our HR team back in March. What drew you to us as an organization?
Yeah, you know, it was that openness and dedication to getting things right and really supporting people. And when it comes to inclusion, there are some things that are LGBT specific when it comes to including LGBT people, but so much of inclusion in general is being open to new and different ideas, being not afraid of conflict or discomfort, because like you mentioned, discomfort, that's how we know, okay, this is an opportunity for growth. And so from what I've seen from St. John's is there's an openness to learn new and different things, and there's a commitment to really supporting people and doing what's necessary to make sure that they get that support. And those are just principles that just apply to many different areas, not just like LGBT inclusion.
Yeah, those are great points. We have been, over the last couple of weeks during our town hall meetings, we've been talking about this issue of equality and the role that St. John's can play potentially. And there's a desire, I believe, amongst the leadership team and the board and the organization generally to look inside and understand where can we do a better job, and then be active outside, externally, and how can we message and how can we support and how can we advocate. And last week I announced at Town Hall that we want to start kind of what, we don't even have a term for it yet, but like an ally initiative, if you will, where we gather a council. You talked about like a diversity council of representative people across the organization to come together on a monthly basis and just look at some of our issues internally, look at what's happening externally, and help lead us through that process of improving and expanding our diversity, our inclusion, our allyship, if you will. So I'm really excited to see where that goes. Just knowing how bright the people we have and just how diverse and representative our organization is, I'm excited to see us get better and take a more active role in the community.
Yes, definitely. I'm really excited to see it, and excited to see who's going to be a part of the council and the ideas that they come up with.
Yeah, it could be something I think that is a catalyst for us that really leads to change internally, because I'm sure we are not doing everything that we could be doing either correctly or just to really help people feel affirmed. And I want to make sure that that's happening. I again go back and believe that we are an incredibly inclusive organization, but I also believe that we can improve. We've improved in a lot of ways over the last couple of years, and I'm excited to see our focus shifting to this particular, and a lot of it is, I think, the context that we're in right now and what is happening with the Black Lives Matter movement, causing us to look at ourselves in the mirror, causing us to take more active role. I'd love to get your perspective. So, how are you feeling as you kind of look over the last couple of weeks since George Floyd's passing and his killing, and then you see the protests and you see the response from government? How are you what are you thinking as you're reflecting and as you're witnessing all of this?
Yeah, it's really difficult. And I'll say, as a Black trans person, unfortunately, death and violence is real in our community. We've had so far at least 12 Black trans people, at least 12 trans people, most of them Black, that have been killed so far this year. Actually, just this morning, I found out that a body was found in Philadelphia that we think may be a trans woman that has been missing.
Wow.
And last year we had about 26 trans people that we know of that were murdered. And so, right now at this time, it's heavy because Tony McDade was a Black trans man that was murdered by police just a couple weeks ago. And so this moment is really heavy as we continue to see this death go on. And at the same time, this has been what trans people have been living for many years, always subjected to this kind of violence. And so my heart is heavy, but I'm hopeful. I'm really glad to see so many people acknowledging police violence, and not just acknowledging it, but also willing to work to change things. And I just want folks to know that, even if maybe you're just finding out about these things in the past couple weeks, this has been the lived reality for many groups for a long time. So it's heavy.
What do you hope, like what tangible change do you hope to see as a result of everything that's happening right now?
Yeah, I will say that I want to see our communities safe. That is what I want to see. And I want to see just however we can get that accomplished, so that I can feel safe walking down the street. My Black trans siblings can feel safe walking down the street. So ultimately, that is what I want to see. I don't believe personally that the police keep me safe because of just how much violence trans people have experienced from police. And so a world where I feel safe walking down the street is a world with less police, to be honest. But I don't want people to be afraid of that. Ultimately, what I want to see is everyone be safe.
Yeah, that's great. And that's certainly something we all need to rally behind and work towards, and take an active role with our voices and with our actions in the communities where we live in order to help that become a reality. I think that the protests have pulled back the veil for a lot of white Americans, frankly, that of what the realities have been for our friends and our loved ones, and those that are minorities and members of the LGBTQ community, and those that are Black and brown. I mean, it's been eye-opening, and I really hope that this is a moment in our history where personally and then organizationally we can say that we are on the right side of, and that we are advocates for change, and that we are being the best allies we can be, even if we're new to that, and still learning. I found that people have been very gracious as they see more and more people trying to become allies. I see that they're being welcomed and supported and affirmed in those steps, even if they're initial. So that gives me hope and optimism, and I think it's going to continue to grow. So Alex, with a couple minutes left, kind of within our organization, how do you think we might be able to come together more, or what suggestions would you have for your fellow team members and what we can do to lend our voices or really help be a better ally?
Yeah, I want to first say that allyship is a spectrum. It's kind of it's a journey. There's no, you sign up one place and now you're an ally, everything and you're good. It's harder than that. And so first, I just want people to understand that, it's a journey, it's a spectrum. You're not going to know and understand everything immediately. I think the first step is cultural humility, which is basically, in short, understanding that you have a culture and you have a way that you do things. And then there are also other people, and they have their culture and the way that they do things. And with cultural humility, we want to just understand and respect other people's way of living and how they want to be referred to. So first, just give people some space to be themselves. That's one way to really be a great ally and to support them in being themselves. Also, just getting educated. We have to remember that our society is not automatically accepting of trans people and of LGBT people, and so there's a little bit of education that we have to do so that we can kind of unlearn some of the homophobic and transphobic things that we've been taught, growing up, even as a trans person. I grew up in South Carolina, and I didn't know anything about I didn't know anything about trans people. I didn't even really know how to be a good ally, even though I was in the community. And so I had to do that education too. So really just starting off in educating yourself and just being open to meeting people where they are and respecting them. I think that's a good starting place.
That's excellent. That's great perspective. And so you've been working from home for the last couple months through COVID. I always try to ask people, how are you coping with kind of just, being at home most of the time? Things are starting to reopen, which is great, but at the same time can create some anxiety. How do you de-stress during these times? Like, how have you been de-stressing? How have you been kind of keeping care of yourself and managing through?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love meditation, mindfulness, meditation, like specifically throughout the day, I find to be really, really helpful. We've been kind of in information overload since the start of COVID. And so you've got, lots of work things going on, and then you've got COVID information coming at you, and sometimes it's a lot. And so you just do that mindfulness meditation where you sit for a moment and just focus on your surroundings. Don't let yourself go off into the clouds worrying about, your whole to-do list. And so just giving myself time to be present and not worry has been just a major de-stressor.
That's great. Yeah, I think the idea that you have to allow yourself time to disconnect, time to center yourself, I think, and regroup. There's been times where I've had a stressful event and needed literally just to take a few minutes to walk away from that and kind of regroup and go for a walk and clear my head and kind of come back to center before re-engaging, whatever that is. So I think you're right, because these are really weird times and very stressful, and we've not gone through anything like this before. So I think having grace for yourself and making sure that you focus on self-care is incredibly important. It's something that we certainly are trying to stress. Or stress, I guess, is an interesting word to use, but we're trying to promote that and trying to model that at St. John's. Listen, Alex, any parting thoughts? I really have appreciated your time and your perspective. Anything else that you would want to share or have people know before we finish our time together?
Yeah, sure. I would just really encourage folks to find out their local LGBT center. Those local LGBT centers are the places that are providing direct services to LGBT people. These centers, some centers provide even housing sometimes, clothes, meals. So just find out your local shelter and find out what they need. Maybe you donate, maybe you donate some time. I would really recommend everyone do that. And if you're in DC, there's No Justice, No Pride, which provides housing, and they're always in need of support, as well as Casa Ruby here in DC. So really recommend that. And if you'd also just want to learn more about how to be an ally, recommend you can check out transequality.org for more info on trans people, or even PFLAG if you want more info on how to be an LGBT ally.
Yeah, you turned me on to PFLAG, and I've been reading their materials, and they're really, really powerful, and they're lengthy, but they're thorough, and they've got a lot of great content there. So thank you for that. Listen, it's been great talking to you. Thank you for being a voice during this time. Thank you for lending us your wisdom and your leadership. And I just want to thank you for being who you are, Alex. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Happy Pride.